Shalom Aleichem and welcome. We are here in the Library of Online Smicha, and it's our honor and privilege that we have with us Shimon Nachman Elkin, who is a mashgiach for one of the hashgachas, and we, Baruch Hashem, spend a lot of time learning the halachas, and Shimon Nachman does that too, but Shimon Nachman has one plus over us, that he has hands-on experience. So I asked him to spend some time with us and take us through not only the Yam Talmud, take us through the Yam of experience to relate everything that we are learning lately in Pasakum, Bisholakum, Cholovakum. And you know what? I'm sure we have issues of Basa B'cholav, issues of Taruvis Isiv Heter, Kashering. That's what he does, Chaye Yom Yom, and he lives with this. I'm sure his day-to-day experience will help us out. So I'm going to just open up, as the expression in English is, I'm just going to open up the conversation open up the can of worms, and then I'll let Shimon Nachman tell us some of his experiences, what we may need to know when as a consumer, as somebody going to the store. We live in a place where we don't have, it's not Borough Park. We don't have everything only Mahadrim and Mahadrim kosher stores. We go to a Walmart, we go to a Target, and we are looking for things that are kosher, and we are relying on other people's supervision. What are things that we have to be concerned? So I'm going to start the conversation by asking some basic questions. Basically, the last thing I mentioned first. Reb Shimon Nachman, if somebody were to go to Target today, he's hungry and he wants to have a quick meal, and it happens to you, I'm sure, every day when you are out there in the boondocks and you're hungry, and the only stores you find is a Walmart, a Target, and you want to buy something to eat. What are the first and the most important issues that you have to be aware when you're about to buy something to eat, to make sure that the foods that you're going to buy are kosher? Speak up.
That's not really very the question isn't really very complicated, because of course when you go to the store, first of all you got a big produce department, and produce is you got fruits and vegetables, you don't have any question over there. And then you've got any number of I was talking to somebody else about in the good old days you had to really search to find maybe a jar of kosher pickles, but now you have to search to find stuff that doesn't have a hechsher. So it's the question about what to find in the store. I can be out in the middle of nowhere. And that's not really a question for a mashgiach, a consumer question. You get all kinds of kosher products. It's not difficult at all.
Could I respond to that without naming names? Obviously, we're not talking lashon hara, but. Would you just tell anybody, as long as you see any symbol?
No, obviously not any symbol. I mean, there are approved hashgachas, and there's hashgachas which are not acceptable by major kashruth organizations. And give you some obvious examples. You've got you're going in, you get a canned vegetables, all right. So canned vegetables, you can have a hechsher from the OU. You're going to have a hechsher from Star K. All very good hechshers. You can also have a hechsher from the Triangle K, and Triangle K happens to use a particular heter, which people are aware of. It's a heter which involves. Interesting that the Rabbi Wilhelm mentioned before about opening a can of worms. By the way. You may not know this, but we as Yidden Shomer Torah mitzvahs, we're not allowed to eat worms. You may not know this. However, this particular hechsher, the Triangle K, finds a heter to allow using bugs or a derivative of a particular bug, and the derivative is called carmine. and they use it for coloring. But they find a heter to use that, and they give their hechsher on that particular canned product that uses that. And as far as I know, none of the other. I mean, our hashgacha certainly doesn't accept that heter, and none of the major hashgachas that I'm familiar with accept that particular heter. And then the
What's their heter based on?
You're talking out of my range now. I'm assuming, and I don't know because no, I won't even say what I'm assuming. It's out of my range what they're basing the heter on. I don't know. But
K, just the letter K.
okay, very good. Oh, thank you very much. Right, you walk into the store and you see the letter K. The letter K by itself is essentially meaningless. Letter K means that somebody decided to put the letter K on because the letter K is not a copyrightable symbol, and so anybody can put I can put K on my on any kind of product at all. However, there are certain companies that do use just the letter K on their products to indicate that they're kosher, and in fact they are kosher. In fact, they do have very good hashgacha. Problem there is that you have to know the particular company and the particular and the hashgacha that they're using to know whether the K is good or not. For example, Kellogg's cereal only uses a K. It does not have any recognized symbol of a hechsher symbol.
I think you have to be careful what you're saying. Not all Kellogg cereal. It's not a blanket statement. Not all.
I'm not saying all Kellogg cereal. I didn't say all Kellogg cereal. I said Kellogg cereal uses a regular K. Got to listen to that. And so that regular K that they're using is an indication that they have a good hashgacha on those products that have the, and they also use a K with a D. Obviously, that indicates that it's dairy. So that's the kind of thing that you're looking for. And there are any number of other non-acceptable hashgachas. Off the top of my head, I can think of.
Let's not go there.
Yeah, why not? Off the top of my head, I can think of. There's frozen fish. There's Gorton's frozen fish. There's a number of frozen fishes which use the same hashgacha, but Gorton's frozen fish uses something called a tablet K. Tablet K, looking like the classic rendition of the Sarasadibros with a K inside it, and that is also none of the major kashruth organizations accept that hechsher as a valid hechsher.
Okay, let's go back to another statement you said. You said, "Oh, fruits and vegetables."
Okay.
Is that correct? You could go in to buy any fruits, any vegetables, no concerns about bugs, no concerns about worms.
There's certainly concerns about bugs, but again, not again. I'm sorry, but in terms of the vegetable itself, the raw vegetable, since we are not zoiche to be in Eretz Yisrael, and we don't have concerns about trumas and meiser and shemitah, although that is something that you should watch out for. Occasionally, I'll walk into the store and I'll see tomatoes, product of Israel. Now you do have a concern about trumas meiser, so I tend to stay away from that kind of stuff. But with that particular issue aside, there are the fruit and vegetable itself, even grapes. Although not raisins, but raisins with a hechsher. But fruits and vegetables themselves are, that's perfectly acceptable. In terms of the possible contamination that they have, well, yeah, there are methods that you can use to avoid or to get rid of any of that contaminations, any of the bugs. Different methods. What I'm talking about over here is I'm talking as a consumer. I'm not talking as a mashgiach, because our particular hashgacha doesn't really deal with those products. We deal with very few retail products. We deal mostly with ingredients that are used for further processing. We do have one major retail product, and that is granulated sugar. Granulated sugar is a great product because it goes in to the factory as a sugar beet, a big ugly sugar beet, and it comes out at the other end of the factory as granulated sugar in the retail packages, or in 1-ton super sacks for industrial processing, but it's the same stuff. So so that product is a retail product, and the process of making sugar is pretty fascinating. But from a kashruth aspect, it's also pretty simple. So that's that particular issue. But mostly we don't deal too much with retail products. So I don't know. I could tell you something about. The ingredients, some of the ingredients that we're making, because yeah.
So I would guess that most of the hashgachas today are because the Jewish people don't own the factories. So they go into a factory that makes non-kosher food, and they buy certain times where they make kosher. So then you're running into a situation where you have to kasher the kalim that were used for non-kosher. Monday was producing non-kosher, and today they're going to be they're using a kosher run. Correct? Is that like a?
Oh yeah, definitely.
That's the most typical where.
It's certainly a very common situation. That's correct.
So Rab Shimon Nachman, could you help us out? Where are the most common questions? And where are the most difficult questions? I know spray dryer is a very interesting dilemma. I know kashering. Tell us some of your interesting life stories.
Interesting life stories. Yeah, well, it's like anything else. For me, it's just humdrum, and I never know what's interesting for me. But what's interesting for me is seeing Rabbi Wilhelm riding on a bicycle. That's pretty interesting. But in terms of a spray dryer, and indeed,
what is a spray dryer?
So talk about the situation where the particular company is producing kosher and non-kosher in the same plant, and so for
more
the
specific, an example.
Yeah.
Okay, example. What's happening?
Example? Oh, it is not difficult at all. The particular company one day is making spray dried vinegar. The next day they're making spray dried creamer. Creamer using milk and buttermilk and whey, and the next day they're making spray dried balsamic vinegar, which is non-kosher balsamic vinegar. So
non-kosher because of
yain nesach. Yeah, because of yain nesach, and they do other, they could do other non-kosher products also, but I just happened to pick this particular one.
And this is happening simultaneous?
No, certainly not. No, you've got one spray dryer. Aha. So spray dryer. You think to yourself, oh, it's like that little bottle that you use to clean your windows off. You spray it and then it dries and it's a spray dryer. No, spray dryer usually is about 7 stories tall, and probably I don't know, maybe 30 feet in diameter, and pretty complicated piece of equipment, and certainly over hundreds of thousands of dollars for this one piece of equipment, and so good. So the spray dryer will take the product that goes into it as a liquid, as a cooked liquid, and then it will turn it into dry powder. So it does that by heating it. and by heating it and by running it through heated air. And it sounds real simple, but again, it's pretty complicated engineering in terms of the kashruth questions. The heat source for that dryer can be and is usually a burner, usually a gas-fired or an oil-fired burner to heat up the air that is being used to dry the product off. Essentially, you're essentially not evaporating, but I can't think of the word. You know, when you dry something, dehydrating. Thank you very much. Yes, it's essentially dehydrating the product at high temperature. So your burner temperature can be up as high as 400 degrees. The actual air temperature of the hot air going into the dryer, that's more like 200 degrees, 230 degrees, right around there. And some products are more sensitive than other products in terms of the heat of the drying air that's going in there, because they'll burn real easily, or the fat that's in the product will separate out from the because it's an emulsion that they're drying, and they don't want stuff to separate out. They want it to stay together. So all this stuff is done by highly skilled, highly professional spray dryer operators, of which I am not one. But in terms of so good. So now he's going to take his honey or his vinegar, and he's going to mix it up with water, and he'll throw in a little bit of what we call a carrier. He'll throw in a little bit of starch that is used to kind of hold the product together while it's in the dryer, and then he puts it under high pressure. This liquid, it's hot. It's under high pressure, and he sprays it into the dryer. And the dryer takes this hot pressure liquid spray, and it turns it into powder. So now, so first I took this parv product, which was the vinegar, and I dried it, and it comes out vinegar powder. And then the next day, I took I took the creamer that I made with starch and with non-fat milk, and with a little bit of possibly a little bit of cream, and possibly a little bit of not shortening, but like soybean oil or corn oil, and I made that product. And then the next day, I made non-kosher powder in the dryer. Now, how do you deal with it? Well, obviously you have to kosher the dryer. Now, even if I didn't make the non-kosher product, I say I don't mean me. I mean the plant. The plant even if the plant didn't make a non-kosher product, they made the melchic product. But the next day they want to make something parv again. They want to go back to making their parv vinegar. So it's got to be koshered. It's got to be koshered from the melchic status to the parv status, or what these plants usually like to do is they like to go from parv to melchic to non-kosher, because it's more efficient for them to do it in that sequence, because then they only have to kosher one time instead of having to kosher in between all the different stages. But good. But one of the first considerations is that there's got to be shehiyah me'es le'es. There's got to be a downtime. There's got to be what they like to call a fallow period, and that is to say, after the dryer has finished running the product, then they wash it out. And of course, the dryer has to be clean. If the sometimes their washing system will fail, or a valve won't open, or a pump will burn out, and since this is happening in the middle of the night, maybe the cleanup operator didn't notice it because he was a little bit distracted, and then the dryer doesn't get clean. And then I walk in there and I look at it and I say, it didn't get clean. You got to start your clock over again. First, you got to clean it, and then you got to start your clock over. So once the dryer is properly cleaned, then we start a 24-hour clock, which is downtime, and the guys go out and play golf for a day, and then
you always wait for it to become pogrom.
They always wait for it to become pogrom?
Do they allow?
So you're talking. So good. So you're making a good point. Our position lechatchila from our hechsher is to have shehiyah meis leis, 24 hours down. That's our lechatchila position. Sometimes, rarely, we in a very difficult situation, we can put in a davar pagum in order to make that pagima not by waiting 24 hours, but rather by introducing a really nasty substance.
What do you use for that?
Okay, so there's different things. In the good old days, we used to use pine oil, which pretty nasty taste. Smells good, but tastes really nasty. Nowadays, they did something very interesting. And I believe this was developed in Vietnam during the war. They came up with a chemical that when you apply it to plants, to crops, it makes them taste so nasty and so awful that nobody does it. It doesn't really harm any of the it doesn't harm the vegetation at all. It doesn't really last. It washes off eventually, but it is so nasty. And that's the stuff we use.
My question is, every time you're kashering everyday plants.
Yeah.
Every time you do kashering, is it always after a downtime of 24 hours, or? I can't imagine these big plants that run 24/7.
Yes, exactly right. 95% of the time, with very rare exceptions, it is a shehiyah meis leis, which means that they have to schedule their production very carefully so that they don't just say, every other day they say, we got a kasher again, because hey, why not? It doesn't. No, they're losing 24 hours of production time on this piece of equipment. Of course, a lot of the plants, that isn't the only piece of equipment they have.
So they have to charge more for this, for kosher products.